Yeah, you know, in Japan, you go to Japan, and they're just like the anime theme songs just playing on the radio. It's just normal.
Yeah, exactly. And I like it, I guess, right? It's like, hey, I know this song.
Yeah, I was like sitting in a department store, and I heard the theme song to Lucky Star, I think. And I went over to my house mom, was like, "Do you know this song?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's just a pop song. What about it?" And I was like, "That's the theme song to Lucky Star." And she's like, "I don't know what that is."
Oh no! So to
I was like, "Okay,
this is just regular music." So is it kind of like when you're in China and you eat Chinese food? It's actually just food.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'll cold open in 3, 2, 1.
Wait, I thought that was our cold open.
Oh, was it? Wait, were we recording the entire time? Nani?
It was the cold open all along.
Oh no! Actually, that's the cold open right there. Perfect.
Welcome to the Level Cap Podcast. I am your host, D. Brad Towton Jr., and with me is my wonderful, exciting, and exuberant co-host,
Marco De Santos. And Brad, you got the name of the podcast wrong.
Oh no, what is it?
Because this episode is not of the Level Cap Podcast, but of the Level Recap Podcast, where we commemorate all of our good times, Brad. Hey.
After all these years, we knew a recap episode was eventually coming.
Yeah, I mean, look, what better way to celebrate episode 99 than to recap all of our fun times together? But in my opinion, most of it is just me doing stuff and you experiencing some eternal turmoil because of it.
Yeah, it's mostly just me being haunted by the ghost of Marco past.
The ghost of Marco's past, exactly. So, Brad, why are we doing this?
Well, there's a little more to it than this, because this is not just a recap episode. This is actually like the training montage, because after we've begun to throw a punch. And the montage has started, and when the montage ends, the punch will be thrown and we'll have unlocked our full Shonen power.
Yeah.
Everything will change. Like, we will go Super Saiyan over the course of this montage.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Level Cap Podcast is changing. This is the final episode of the old Level Cap Podcast. You might say it's a sort of the final step in our journey of becoming
Level 99. Reaching level 99. You know, we're going to prestige mode, we're going to new game plus, and we're going to start back to level 1.
Yep. Transmigration. As they call it in Disgaea.
Yeah. Somebody in the comments once said that Transcend, which is a Ragnarok mechanic, wherein you go back to level 1 after reaching level 99. So it's exactly like that.
Yeah. So that's where we're headed. We're headed towards a level reset.
Yep. So we're headed towards a level reset, and we're going to take a break to flesh out the new version of the podcast, make it better. So unfortunately for all of you, this will also substitute as our Christmas episode, since this is going to be the last episode of 2018. When are we going to be back?
Unfortunately, depending on whether you're one of those enemies that has been inflicted this podcast.
Yeah, and you absolutely hate it, but still listen to it. I mean, that's a thing. So when will we?
When one of my enemies sends me a podcast, that's what I do. I start listening to it religiously.
God, of course, because if they're sending it to you, that must mean they like it, right? And you listen to it.
Certainly not. Yeah, and you have to know your enemies. So
yeah, definitely. So when will we be back, Brad? When will the new episodes be coming?
New episodes will be starting January, every Wednesday, just like usual. January 2019. Look out for the new Level Cap Podcast in 2019.
Sounds wonderful.
That's January 2019, Wednesday. Every Wednesday at noon, USA Mountain Time.
Noon, USA Mountain Time. Hello, I am the new Marco.
The new Marco.
New Marco. My name is New Marco. New Marco. I don't know what that voice was. I
didn't like that new Marco. Let's not do that. Let's not carry that over. Let's not transmigrate that Marco.
Yeah, he sucks. All right. So, welcome to this special level recap episode of the Level Recap Podcast, where Brad and I talk about our top 5 podcast moments, where Brad and I spent a few minutes, hours of our time remembering some of our favorite moments from the podcast, and we have selected 5 of our favorite moments, and each. So we both have different ones, and we're gonna be talking about them in order, from going from 5 to our top number 1. So let's start off with our number 5. Brad, what's your number 5 top level cap podcast moment?
So my number 5s, I think, and it's kind of a combination. I really enjoyed when we hit our stride with the Game Club episodes, and I think that was kind of early on in the podcast, around episodes 29 and 30, when we were doing the games like Pyre and Momodora, and we played a game every week, and we really got in depth talking about it, and those were some of my favorite discussions with you, Marco. And so I kind of want to remember back to those episodes and remember back to the great discussions we had, and relive those. And I think that that's something that I want to carry into the new podcast. I really want to do more of the great Game Club games that we did. I had a lot of fun playing those games and also thinking about how I was going to talk to you about them when I was playing them.
Very cool. I really like those episodes as well. And in case you're listening to this podcast, I've probably inserted a sentence or two from that episode to just give you some context. I really love those episodes. I really liked Pyre too. It's very different to play a game with the express purpose of talking about it. I rarely get that opportunity, right? Because most of the time I play a game, then I have to talk about it. But I played that game not knowing that I had to talk about it. So it was a very interesting experience, especially for Momodora, right? Because I literally only played that game for the Game Club. So it was a very interesting.
It's a game we wouldn't have otherwise played. I don't think either of us would have otherwise played if it weren't for the Game Club.
Yeah, definitely true. Definitely true. So, Brad, want to guess what mine?
I'm 2 ahead. So what's your number 5 and 4, Marco?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you just went on with both. I'm so
well. They kind of were the same. So I didn't want to say the same thing twice.
That's fair. Okay, so my number 5 is racing fan fiction from episode 18. So
yeah. No, I meant racing fan fiction.
No, I meant racing fan fiction. So this was an episode where we were talking about fan fiction, because we just released a fan fiction contest and we were doing a live reading of the thing that won, and I was talking about how we needed more racy fan fiction. And then you said, no, Marco, this is a Safe for Work podcast. And then I said, no, I meant racing fan fiction.
And then we talked about how there would be a kart racing game.
Yeah, absolutely perfect, right? And
for the world of Indians, just there was for Persona, I think.
Okay, so yes, but for Persona, that's not real. That's a fan game called Persona Karting All Afternoon.
Yeah, but somebody made it, so it's real.
I mean, okay, yes.
Just like that Mega Man first-person shooter.
That's true. Or that anime fidget spinner battle game. So, I mean...
Well, that's actually a real game made by a legitimate company, unfortunately.
And speaking of anime fidget spinners, number 4 for Marco is Fidget Spinners Not Control My Life, My Mind, and My Body, episode 25, where I literally talk about anime fidget spinner battle, and this is the best thing ever. Yeah, it's so good.
I've only seen 3 fidget spinners in the wild in my whole life, and I've never used one. Have you ever even used one of these things, Marco?
I own multiple.
Why? What would the second one do that the first one doesn't do? I mean, okay, I could see you doing one in each hand, but what would the third one? What purpose would the third one possibly have?
Brad, they have different weights and stuff, and different colors. Why do people own more than one shirt? Why do people own more than one pair of shoes?
Well, because they go into the laundry. And then the shoes, right? You have your hiking shoes, you have your regular shoes, you have your house shoes.
Well, I have my breakfast spinner, and my lunch spinner, and my work spinner. Come on.
But the shoes, actually are for different kinds of ground. You only have the same fingers.
I don't know. Maybe one of them was specially designed for my thumb. Who are you to judge me and my spinner?
They all have to be specially designed for your thumb, don't they? You can't spin with 2 fingers. You got to spin with your thumb.
Oh, that's what you think, Brad. You are but a fidget spinning novice.
I guess so.
You can't deny anything I say about fidget spinners because I have insurmountably more experience about them than you.
I see.
So, much like many parents tell their kids, you're too young, whippersnapper.
Too young to understand these fidget spinners.
Yeah, too young to understand the glory of the fidget spinner and why I would love to play a gacha game where you get 6-star fidget spinners. Still great. Still a great game. I highly recommend Anime Fidget Spinner Battle. I can't even say it with a straight face.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
All right, so let's move on to number 3. Hopefully we keep in time this time. Brad, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 was the Shonen Powers episode. You talk about Kurana no Basket and the ridiculous power he has where he can turn invisible with the basketball.
Perfect.
That is the like silly, but it spawned a whole slew of shonen power memes, and that's your shonen power has kind of become the catchphrase, one of the catchphrases of this podcast. And every time I hear it, I think about that episode and like, what's the most ridiculous shonen power? Like, we already talked about it this episode in the intro.
Yeah, exactly. You literally mentioned your shonen power. Speaking of which, Brad, I definitely have this cool board game idea wherein we all have ridiculous shonen powers for like the most mundane thing, right? Like, I don't know, it's a fidget spinner competition, and then we all have ridiculous shonen powers, like, I can spin fidget spinners with only my index finger. Oh, my fidget spinner spins so fast it creates fireballs. I don't know. That
like,
would be
once
awesome.
I spin the eternal spinner, it will never stop spinning.
You know what I just realized? I talk about this like it's funny or something, but isn't this one of the parts for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Steel Ball Run?
Maybe. I haven't gotten that far.
Okay, in Steel Ball Run, I think there's a thing called the spin, and they have balls, and they spin the balls. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I think.
Okay.
Confirmed JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
This is actually confirmed shonen anime moment already.
Yeah, confirmed shonen anime about fidget spinners.
But what we learned is that having obscure shonen powers can make anything cool.
And anything hilarious. Honestly, anything hilarious, of course. So, Brad, are you going to ask me what my number 3 is?
Nah.
Oh, okay.
So what's your number 2, Marco?
Oh, no. Okay, my number 2... Okay, no, seriously.
All right, what's your number 3?
Brad sings a Ghost Marco sitcom theme song, episode 88. I have no idea what you were referencing there. It was just hilarious that you were able to do it.
That was the opening theme song to Scooby-Doo. I mean, like, that was literally the Scooby-Doo theme song.
Wait.
Exactly.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think here's the big difference in our generational gap, right? Because
I watched Scooby-Doo.
No, I watched Scooby-Doo, but I watched the new one.
Yeah, nobody likes that stuff. It's all about the originals.
So the song that I remember isn't that. It's the one that goes, "What's new, Scooby-Doo? We're coming after you. We're gonna solve that mystery."
Like, well, that's also an old one. I remember that one, but that was not the.
That was the one I grew up with.
Yeah.
So
the one I remember was like, so come on, get involved till the mystery is solved. Hang around, Scooby Doo, doo 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 doo. That one.
Yeah. So again, obscure, and I think this is a prevailing thing about our podcast, right?
Is that we make a lot of obscure references that neither one of us, that the other person doesn't get.
Exactly, and it's not just because it's obscure, right? It's because it's because we just come from different contexts, and I think that's a strength of our podcast, right?
These are the awkward moments that our fans live for.
Exactly, because the cringe is what they crave, I guess.
The cringe is the crave. Yes.
Yes, exactly. The cringe is what they crave, and to be fair though, like I still found it absolutely hilarious that you were just able to do it like straight. What's so funny? Are you okay?
I'm sorry. It's just the idea that we're analyzing it, and that's the conclusion that we take away is that we're so awkward. Our fans must like the awkwardness. That's the only possible explanation for how we've gotten this many episodes in. is that they love listening to awkward people do awkward awkward stuff online. Oh man.
Okay.
That's bad. That's just bad. That's not the conclusion that I wanted to take away from all this, Marco.
Hey, listener, in the comment section down below, type the cringe is the crave.
Oh, man. I don't know whether to laugh or cry, Marco.
Both.
You can type that, but nothing will happen. You can't change the future. Nothing will change.
Yeah. Yes, but listener, you can type the cringe is the crave if you agree that the awkwardness is part of the appeal. We're just proving our own point, Brad, because you're just proving the point. The past 1 minute has just been us laughing, and I bet people enjoyed it. So for the listener, in case you're wondering why there was suddenly just a break there, Brad and I proceeded to laugh for the next 2 minutes, and we decided that that was not good airtime. So Brad, number 2, what's your number 2?
I really enjoyed all the games that we played on the podcast, and one of my favorites was the televised episode, where we had to come up with television episodes for our favorite board games.
Mm-hmm.
And like basically pitch a TV series. We had a lot of fun pitching TV series for like the World of Indies or for some of our favorite board games, that kind of thing. So it was good. It was a good time, and I really enjoyed doing those episodes.
Which one was your favorite? Which pitch was your favorite?
Oh gosh, I couldn't remember exactly. Probably the Dark Souls. The Dark Souls televised, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
Freaking course. My favorite one was definitely the one where we came up with the Millennium Blades show.
Yeah.
Wherein the main character, protagonist, in a card game anime, realizes that he can just, like, say no to
Make
people.
Up whatever rules. He can put down whatever cards he wants, and they'll work exactly how he says.
Or like the entire thing. It's like, no, remember, like his shonen power was the fact that he realizes that children's card games aren't the only way to solve conflicts.
Right.
Okay. In an entire world where everybody solves conflicts via children's card games. So it's like, you must defeat us in a children's card game in order to pass through this bridge. And he's like,
but wait, couldn't we be friends?
Can we just be like friends? Can we just like be cool for a second? Like I'm willing to pay a toll or something. And they're like, but don't you want to play this children's card game? And it's like, yeah, we don't really have time. Our friend Jonathan was just kidnapped. And it's like, oh man, that sounds real bad. I'm sorry. And he's like, yeah, it's okay. So like, can you just let us through? It's like, hey, yeah, man, it's fine. And then like, there's no, like the joke is that not a single card game gets played the entire show.
Oh man,
yeah, hilarious.
That'd be quite a card anime.
Yeah, it would be the best one.
So what's your number 2, Marco?
Breaking Dawn, Ivana x Demetrius fanfic, episode 43. Brad, you have to understand, that fanfiction was glorious. You weren't there. You weren't there when it happened. You weren't there on that episode.
I see.
Yeah.
So your favorite episodes are the ones where I'm away.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's totally not fair. Wait, I just said it was fair and then totally not fair.
You said it was fair and not fair.
Yeah, it's fair and not fair. I mean, because
it's fair and otherwise.
Fair and otherwise. Because you weren't there, so that's what's fair. And that's a true statement. But at the same time, I don't like it because you're not there. I liked it because it showcased something I really love about doing this podcast. And it's being able to shout out members of our community, right?
Yeah.
And, and reading their fan fiction on the official podcast is kind of a shout out to them. And I've loved all of the crazy stuff I've had to read on this podcast and the crazy stuff I've had to say. Look, never again will you ever hear Marco DeSantos say something like, and he brushed his perfect lips with his perfect finger. that had perfectly trimmed nails and gave me a perfect smile that shook me to my very core. Like, you will never be able to hear me say something like that ever again. Though I guess by saying that right now, I just disproved that point. Regardless, right? It's wonderful.
Yeah. No, it's really cool when we have stuff from the fans that we can show off on the podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm totally done with that.
Also, I love Twilight parody fiction. It's a specific genre of fiction that I adore.
Oh, man.
All right. And, of course, our number one favorite level cap podcast moments. Brad, what's your number one? Drum roll?
Well, mine is kind of a recurring theme throughout this podcast, and that is that everything is Dark Souls. And I think we started this in the first few episodes, and it's gone and gone and gone and gone. And everything is Dark Souls.
It is. To be fair, the concept of us rebooting this podcast is kind of like in Dark Souls, where you have to die and respawn at the bonfire, and then everything.
Get all your souls. You have to play better to get all your souls back.
Exactly.
Yep. We're gonna podcast better to get all of your souls back.
Yes, because we stole all your souls. Listener, by listening to this podcast, you've actually sold your soul to us, and we're sorry. We kind of lost it.
And then we died and dropped it. Yeah,
we kind of lost all of them.
We're going back to retrieve your souls so that we can level up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. At the Marco Link Shrine.
Oh no! It's so true. It's too true.
Any analogy breaks down when you take it too far. All right, so Marco, what is the Dark Souls of podcast moments for you?
Oh no, the Dark Souls of podcast moments for me is drum roll, please, Brad, if you will.
All right.
Collusion. Episode 93. Van Diesel stares into your soul. Brad,
wow.
Have you met our savior Van Diesel?
Well, I don't want to talk about Van Diesel.
How dare you? It's my favorite moment, Brad. It's my favorite moment. You cannot deny me my favorite moment.
I would say go die in a fire, but then you would go to hell and Van Diesel would be there with you. So I can't say that, but you should definitely go somewhere else with that.
Not here, not on this podcast, not on this good podcast.
Not on my wholesome Safe for Work podcast.
Not on my wholesome Minecraft
never gives anybody
server.
Nightmares ever.
Hey, by the way, everyone, now that I've mentioned Minecraft and Van Diesel in the same sentence, can somebody make a Minecraft construction build of Van Diesel? Send me a picture if that ever happens, so that I can send it to Brad.
Marco, that's so basic. Why don't you make a Minecraft mod where every block is Van Diesel's face on it in the whole world?
And
then the camera pans around and you realize that Van Diesel was on your face too.
That you're Van Diesel too. So it's like being John Malkovich, except it's Van Diesel.
And then you look down at your arms, and your arms have the face, and your hands have the face, and your tools have the face.
Oh no.
The nightmare is real and complete.
So I need an entire Minecraft skin pack that changes all the textures into the Van Diesel face. Please and thank you. Brad, we have a lot of fun moments on this podcast.
We do.
Yeah.
It's been a great 2 years. And it has been 2 years. I was going back through the archives, and we started this in January of 2017, and we've hit just about every week to get at 99 episodes in 104 weeks over 2 years. That means we've only missed 5 weeks. And I think some of those, I think actually, I don't think we've missed any weeks because we started the end of January and we're ending at the end of November. So I think we've actually hit all the weeks in 104 weeks. So I think we've hit 99 weeks exactly since we started this.
Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive given that our previous track record was 4.
Brad, as we always say, the longest running level 99 games podcast.
Yep, that's true. We've said it since episode 5.
Yeah, we said it's a tagline that no consumer
that nobody ever uses.
Yeah, it's a tagline that nobody ever uses, but it's also a tagline that nobody can ever refute,
until we get to episode 100 on the new Level Cap podcast.
Oh,
the new Super Level Cap podcast.
Yeah, so listeners, Brad and I were thinking about what we should name the new podcast, and we came up with this name.
We've got a pretty special name for you guys. So here, Marco, why don't you introduce the new Super Level Cap podcast?
Okay. So the new title is The New Super Level Cap Podcast, Revengeance HD Xrd Revelator DS, 265.2 over 652 days, 0+, and Knuckles, featuring Funky Kong with special guest Brawler. Prepare to Otherwise edition.
Yep, that'll surely fit on the box.
Yeah, and I think it's very accurate to... it's
kind of catchy, You could abbreviate it.
Yeah, and it'll be like NSLCPRHXR2D0NKFFKWSGBPOE, right? Like that's very simple, right? It's like
we could actually just abbreviate it to like MARCO.
It's perfect.
M.A.R.C.O in true Fallout style.
Yeah, in true Fallout style. It's called the Marco system. M stands for Marco, A stands for End, R stands for Revengeance, C stands for Kong, and O is Otherwise, right? It's perfect.
Yeah. The new Level Cap podcast will take cues from Fallout 76. Once the podcast starts, Brad and Marco will already be dead, and you'll just be listening to a holotape that they left behind.
That's actually not a bad idea, but I think you're not immersed enough into Fallout 76 to capture the nuances. So, listener...
You're actually reading the terminal.
In post...
The podcast is the terminal.
In post, listener, to capture the full Fallout 76 experience, I've inserted 15 whole minutes of dead air where nothing happens. And also, somewhere in the podcast, things glitch out and the audio quality gets significantly worse. And then the words just become reversed or something like that, right? The perfect simulation of Fallout 76 experience.
Since we've gotten through all the ceremony, why don't we wrap this up with some 99 questions?
Hey Brad, for this one, do you just wanna do the intro for the 99 questions?
Sure. All right. So, so we've taken questions which may or may not be your questions. It's unclear, and we've shuffled them into a deck, dealt them out to the table, flipped them over, and immediately hit you again to bust the questions into answers, which we will then give back to you while we take away all the chips, which are your sanity. Let's start 99 questions.
Brad, thank you so much. That was a gift. And it is a gift that will keep on giving in my heart. Okay?
All right.
Question number 1. Who is the best co-host of the Level Cap podcast?
Well, there was that episode where Fabio came on, and that was really a highlight for me because the episode was so good, we decided to immediately do it again afterwards. And
do people even know about this?
Like, there's no co-host that I've immediately invited back. Not just like invited back, but immediately invited back to a second podcast. So Fabio must be the best co-host that we've had.
Yeah, definitely. Like, so good that you had to do it twice, right?
Yeah, to really, really capture that.
Yeah. So I'm assuming both of us are out of the running for this, right?
I mean, if as far as permanent co-hosts, yes, like, we could either vote for ourselves or we could vote for each other, but it feels like
cheating.
Yeah. Marco, you're the best co-host to me.
Oh, Brad, you're the best co-host to me.
Like, you can't see it because it's audio only, but I'm staring deeply into the audio lines as I say this, Marco. I care deeply about you.
Aw, Brad. You can't see this again because it is an audio medium, but I'm doing that like Korean thing people do with like their index finger and their thumb that forms like a small heart.
Oh man, I think we're definitely giving the audience what they crave at this point.
Marco X Brad fan fiction. That's
the cringe is the crave.
Oh my gosh, yes. People write that. Write that now, please. The cringe is the crave. A Marco X Brad fanfiction.
That will not be read. That will never be read on this podcast.
Yes, but it will remain in my heart. For me, the best co-host, barring Brad, of course, has to be Laura. I always love having Laura on the show. She's very fun. And Laura and I share a love for languages. So whenever we get an episode of that podcast cooking, Laura and I spend like 5 minutes talking about accents and nomenclature and phrases. And yeah, I don't know. It tends to be a topic that people like to listen to. So I keep it in, and Laura and I always enjoy doing it. And Laura's just a fun person overall. So Laura, shout out to you.
Well, let's move on to our next question, Marco. This is, I think, the question that everybody's been asking for the entire podcast, and we're finally going to have the definitive answer. What is a brawler?
That is a tough question.
And if you say like a brawler is the Dark Souls of fighters, then you immediately win.
We quit, right? Okay, so but Brad, here I answer your question with another question, and I want you to think deeply about this. Okay?
Okay.
Rather than ask what is a brawler, why not ask what isn't a brawler?
Okay, well, let's see. We can rule out all the characters that appear in Argent Imperial, but not in BattleCon, right? So they're all straight out.
Are you sure? See, Brad, are you sure?
I think so. I think we can rule out fighters that are that don't brawl, right? So anyone that doesn't appear in Smash Brothers Brawl is not a brawler.
Brad, you have to understand.
So that leaves no characters. Nobody's a brawler.
Nobody's a brawler. But if nobody's a brawler, that means everyone's a brawler.
No, it means no one's a brawler.
Are you sure?
We just said, yeah.
Brad,
maybe the brawler was in you all along.
Maybe we're all brawlers. I firmly believe that a brawler is somebody who brings themselves to the table, seizes every new opportunity with gusto, and charges up the super punch that delivers the hit confirm they so desperately need. A brawler is something that you find deep within yourself.
A brawler is someone who never forgets their special action.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, look, we're messing around. Do you actually want the legitimate answer to this question?
I don't know if there is. I don't think there can be a legitimate answer to this question.
No. But there is a legitimate answer to this question.
I think it's been memed so hard that the legitimate answer is gone.
No, but I know.
The building.
I know the legitimate answer. I made the meme.
All right, go for it.
The legitimate answer to this question is that everything and everyone is actually a brawler, because that's the meme, right? So why does this meme exist, right? So this meme exists because of our category fighter classification system. And as a community manager, I spend a lot of time listening to people rant about the classifications. Wherein it's
which are getting updated next year.
Yes, exactly. So Brawler's no longer on that list. Thank you. Right? But the joke comes from the fact that people just keep arguing. It's like, I feel like Karen's more of a brawler than she is a tactician. It's like, I feel like Kimbe is more of a this thing than that thing. And like so many arguments that ultimately just boil down to the fact that my definition of a thing is different than your definition of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the end, like, I feel like the categories become, like, completely quote-unquote useless.
It all becomes muddied. Everything kind of falls to one. Guys that win by damaging the other guy's hit points are brawlers.
Exactly. So that's why that's the meme. So I've decided to just call everyone a brawler, and that's why in every Battle Guides video, all my intros start with, like, Trius is a brawler who uses... Cherry is a brawler who does. Seth is a brawler who, so that's the meme. And that's the answer to what is a brawler. Last question, Brad.
Right.
This is for both of us. Why should I keep listening to the Level Cap podcast?
Well, so the reason to keep listening is to find out what happens next. We're gonna have an exciting cliffhanger ending on this podcast. And then you have to listen in next year to figure out what happens next.
We're going to miss all of you.
But only for a few weeks.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to leave forever or die or something like that, right?
No. But the new Level Cap podcast is going to be so shiny and so professional, you won't even recognize it. It'll be like the original Mario Brothers and Mario Odyssey. Like, it'll be that different.
I see. So
like, the podcast is going to become an open world game. It's going to go from a one screen battler to a 3D, like, 6th generation open world game, all in 1 month.
Wow, that's absolutely great. Do you want to hear my answer to this?
Yeah, go for it.
Is this song like a podcast made for the very first time? Like a podcast where we get you the news you like.
Yep. Cringe is the crave.
Cringe is the crave, man. I'm sorry. You should keep listening because Brad and I will continue to make the podcast better, and hopefully with your feedback and everything, we end up making a product and making a show that all of you like to listen to and enjoy listening to. And hopefully, here's a small teaser, hopefully come out of listening a bit smarter and more knowledgeable about some things, you know?
Yes, we're going to be getting into the edutainment business.
Yeah. So rather
Let
than
us edutain you.
Edutain you, exactly. So you actually come out of the podcast with great, good knowledge rather than some knowledge like Marco singing that song or Van Diesel or Dark Souls is everything, right? Like, as much as we love doing that, maybe it's time that we teach you something that's actually useful.
So look forward to that on the next Level Cap podcast. But now, Marco and I are going to begin powering up and then enter the
hyperbolic time
compression chamber. Yeah, the hyperbolic time chamber. So are you ready, Marco?
All right, Brad. So in order to enter the hyperbolic time chamber, you obviously have to shout like a Super Saiyan, right? So we will fade out this podcast after this intro. As usual, it has been me, your host, Marco Santos, also known as Mechanic Critic. And with me has been my splendiferous, awesome, and honestly, the best co-host.
Aw, Marco. Marco DeSantos.
Aw, Brad Talton. D. Brad Talton Jr. And don't forget your special action and thank you, World of Indians. Thank you, and good night.
Happy gaming.